I mean, what is there to say? Finishing up this show, 5 seasons in the making. I feel like there's just not much more I can add to the. Oh wait, yes there is. How is season 3 rated higher than this one? Idiots need to get your heads on straight. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Stranger Things Season 5, Episode 7, The Bridge. So pretty solid setup for the finale. All these different stories do feel like they're sort of reaching the culmination of what's been building up for most of this season. I will start with the most controversial part of this episode, because if you watch my reviews for a while now, you'll know, especially if you watch my reviews of like the CW Arrowverse, you'll know I'm not the biggest fan of progressive stories, because most of the time that's all they really focus on. They don't make it about anything else. They just focus on trying to be progressive and trying to be supportive. And I find those so much less interesting because it just feels like the writer's trying to basically pander instead of actually writing a good story. So that's typically where I have the biggest issue. This one, in my opinion, it's not that bad. I mean, first of all, thinking about it in the context of this is the 80s. So yes, this is a bigger deal for Will to come out and talk about this stuff than it would be now. Nowadays, I feel like his friends would just be like, okay. And why is this such a big deal? I mean, you're still you. Nothing's changed about you. But in the 80s, this is a bigger thing to talk about. So I understand the nervousness of talking about it. And it does kind of fit in with the story. Because as he talked about, Vecna managed to access these darker parts of him, these secrets that he's been keeping. And so getting it out there and just talking about it with the people that he's close with, it does take one thing away. It does take the power away from Vecna to be able to access that part. And I think it'll give him more power as well to help in this final battle against him. So I don't know exactly what the problem is. I wasn't looking too hard into it just because I didn't want to get spoiled on anything. I don't know if it's just fatigue because there have been a lot of stories like this in media recently. I don't know if people just didn't know that's what his secret was going to be, because he did build it up like it was a big thing, but I kind of knew what it was going to be, because what other secret could he possibly be keeping? But whatever the case, in my opinion, I've definitely seen this done a lot worse, so didn't really have that much of a problem with it. But let's move on to the other stories. So first of all, Holly, I gotta say, she has gone through it this season. I mean, first of all, getting taken by the Demogorgon, and then learning Henry was not actually trying to help her. She's with Max. She manages to get away. She then breaks out of the thing that's holding her, goes into the Upside Down. Ironically, Vecna saves her, because I think she probably would have died if he hadn't pulled her back into the abyss. But now she's got all of these friends of hers that are basically trying to convince her to join the cult of Henry. And I do feel bad for her, because she's so desperately trying to get them to believe her, but they've been there so long. They trust Henry so much. They haven't seen what she's seen. So of course none of them believe her, and even when she reaches out to Derek, who also knows the truth, who also saw what's going on, Henry scared him to the point where he's not willing to say anything. He's scared the dipshit and the delightful out of him. Basically, he scared him so shitless he needs to change his name to Diaper Derek. So I do feel bad for him, because he wants to say something. You could see he doesn't want to be a part of this, but he has no choice, because he's convinced Henry's going to kill his family. But we do see Henry starts to enact his plan to bring the two worlds together. The rest of the group does find out about that plan. Some real nice moments with Max reuniting with the team. Also some good moments of characters interacting with each other. Like, I thought Steve and Dustin finally get a chance to fully reconcile and apologize to each other for what happened a couple episodes ago. I thought it was nice. A very interesting plan, though. Basically going to the top of the radio tower in the Upside Down so they can go into the abyss. I do feel like I understand the idea of the wormhole a lot better now. Understanding that Henry ended up in the abyss before, and then the Upside Down was created when they had Eleven search for Henry. I think it makes sense. I mean, he's definitely not working on our world logic. This idea that this other world does exist out there, it does raise a lot of questions about that world. And I do think if they wanted to do like a spin-off series to explain some of that, they probably could in the future. But I don't feel like that's the important thing for this show. The important thing is stopping Vecna, getting the kids back, and destroying this bridge so that way the Demogorgons, all of them, can't come back to their world. But the final thing to mention is the fact that Kali basically tells Eleven that they both need to stay in the Upside Down and then die. I don't know if that's how this is going to go. I do kind of understand her thinking, though, because the military is so hell-bent on trying to capture them and experiment on Eleven. It does make sense that Eleven just disappearing would be the best way to keep them from being able to complete these experiments. So I don't know if it's going to end with her sacrificing herself to keep that from happening, or if maybe there's like a faking of her death and then she reinvents her life, becomes somebody new. Because I really do hope her and Mike have that happy ending. But then again, I will say, whenever Mike told her that story of living in the place with the 3 waterfalls, I did have a feeling in my mind, I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. Kind of similar to Hopper and Joyce talking about having their date before the end of season 3. It just has that feeling of, yeah, that sounds nice. I don't think it's going to happen though. But we'll see. I mean, I hope it ends on a happy ending and not a bittersweet one. But I'm definitely excited for this finale. Can't wait to see how a lot of these stories come to an end. I can't wait to see how they stop Vecna. It's going to be a long one, so I'm going to try to do my best to talk about all the different parts of it as best as I can. But yeah, we'll get into it now. I'll see you guys there in a sec. And finally, episode 8, The Right Side Up. And honestly, it's a fantastic finale. For me, the only thing that I was slightly disappointed in is the fact that we didn't get to see Dr. K get her comeuppance. Because obviously we got to see the one guy, I think his name was Akers. We got to see him go out in a pretty badass fashion, the way Elle just made him point the gun at himself. It was pretty sick. But yeah, so Dr. K, she doesn't really get any sort of comeuppance. She doesn't get shit for all the stuff she did, all the awful things she did. But I do like the decision that Elle doesn't actually sacrifice herself, but she does make it look like she did. I felt like it was going to be one or the other, and as much as they were talking about it in this final episode that she was going to, that she needed to make that choice, I kind of had a sense she probably wasn't going to, which in my mind meant that she was going to fake her death somehow. Didn't know how it was going to happen. Pretty clever to have Kali fake her own death, so that Hopper wasn't suspecting of it either. And I do like the fact that the kids are the only ones that are able to figure it out, mostly because Mike is the only one that realized she was using her powers, even with all of these things that are supposed to be blocking out her powers. But before we talk about the rest of the epilogue, let's of course talk about everything to do with the climax. So first of all, I'm really glad everybody sort of got their chance to step up and do something. Murray was probably the most surprising, coming in clutch with a grenade in C4, blowing up the helicopter. But then we see Elle getting into the abyss, and then she's fighting against Vecna. All the kids getting to step up and fight back against this giant mind flayer thing. There are still a lot of questions about the world of the abyss, which I'm mixed on. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if we got a little bit more. We did see the stone that apparently the mind flayer used to call to Henry from the beginning of all of it. I do appreciate the fact, because Will seemed to imply that maybe Henry was doing this because he was being forced to, but ultimately we do realize, no, Henry wanted to do all of this. He's still kind of messed up. So I like the fact that he didn't turn it around and go, you know what, you're right, I should help. Sometimes we need the villain to just be the villain, and I thought that was a good choice here because it does allow Eleven to go one-on-one with him. But like I said, we still don't know much about the world of the Abyss. I feel like that's something, if they did want to explore in the future, they probably could. They wanted to have like a little sequel series or something like that. But ultimately, the goal of this final episode was to, 1, take down Vecna, and then 2, close the portal to the Abyss, so that way the Demogorgons, all of that, will no longer be in Hawkins. And then also Elle trying to stay away from the military because her powers are also a connection to the Abyss, because we find out the Mind Flayer is the one that gave Henry his powers to begin with. But a lot of these questions that I do have about the Abyss and the Mind Flayer and all that stuff, how did people get access to this rock that Henry uses to get his powers? I would say I do think a lot of those questions could be fun to get the answers to, whether they wanted to do like a special one day. The writers of the show could even come out and write a book talking about the world of the Abyss. I did find out apparently they do have a stage show that kind of explores Henry and him learning how to use his powers. I had not heard anything about it. My roommate just told me about it, so might be something that I look into and maybe learn the story of in the future. But those questions that are still left a little open-ended, they're not really important to the main story here. But if they ever did want to expand the world of Stranger Things outside of the town of Hawkins and basically focus on everything else, I do think it would be kind of interesting to see what explanations they can come up with. But getting back to the climax, like I said, everybody getting their moment to do something was a lot of fun. The fact that Joyce is the one that gets to cut the head off of Vecna, personally, I think that's a great choice because of all of the stuff, all of the awful stuff she had to go through. Losing Bob, losing Will for a season, and then also him being controlled by this thing in the second season. Even losing Hopper was kind of because of everything Vecna did too. So I did think it was pretty fitting to have her be the one to chop the head off. All the scenes that they were cutting to as well for all of these people that get to watch this thing be destroyed. This person that caused them all so much pain. I thought it was a very touching scene. I know that sounds weird considering he's literally getting his head chopped off. Oh, so touching. But it was just nice for them to get that win and to finally see this thing that had tormented them for so long get destroyed right in front of their eyes. It was a nice moment, and I think the music and the editing on it really brought the feeling of it home. I think the size of the Mind Flayer as well, very well captured. I'm assuming they probably had a decent budget considering how popular this show has been. Yeah, I thought the CGI for being just a show on Netflix, I thought they did a pretty good job with it. It looked like they were all there for pretty much most of the scenes. But I feel like that's all I can really say about the climax, is enjoying everybody getting their moment to stand up and do something cool or take down the bad guy in their own way. Even Vicky kind of getting a little bit of a moment where she gets to hide Max for a minute before obviously Hopper gets Elle out of the tank. But if I went through every single thing that I enjoyed about the first part of the episode, probably be here for a while. I guess if there's one thing that I do want to bring up about the first part of the episode that kind of stood out to me a little bit, it is the moment where Henry finally does decide to go into the cave. I thought it was really well done because the cave has always been sort of this safe space for the kids, for Max. So I do like the fact that it really does show the desperation that Henry has now, that he's finally willing to approach this because he's been so scared to. And so the fact that he's willing to enter the cave and experience this awful memory again, I think it does add that extra layer of, this is getting serious. One thing that I do still wonder about a little bit is why did it have to be the same day that Will was taken? Because obviously, once everybody was in there to try to kill the Mind Flayer and Vecna, that's when it sort of became the final showdown. But if you were seeing everything that everybody was doing, there is the question of why wouldn't you just wait a day or two? Like, well, they have this plan. They're all in there now. If I just wait, there's a chance maybe they'll get captured by the military, or if something else bad will happen that will throw their plans off. So how about we just wait one more day to bring the worlds together? So I don't know why exactly it had to be that precise day that matched up with when Will was taken. I don't know if there was an explanation for that and I missed it, but that was probably the only question that I had that I do kind of wish I maybe got a little bit more explanation on, because it does feel like this day is very important for some reason. So if anybody knows why, could let me know. That'd be cool. It'd be nice to know. But I think that's about it for the climax. So moving on to the epilogue, I think a lot of these stories do wrap up very nicely. Hopper proposing to Joyce and Enzo's brilliant. The graduation scene was very well done. And I thought Dustin's speech was phenomenal. Had me laughing and kind of tearing up at the same time. It was brilliant. But getting to see where everybody is, how everybody's changed a little bit in a year and a half, I thought it was really fun. Steve's now coaching a baseball team. That's a great place for him to be. Derek's his catcher. Nancy dropping out of college to go work at the Herald, I think is a good choice for her, because since the first season, it feels like she's been sort of pushing away this idea of living a conventional life. And that's why she and Steve broke up to begin with, is she saw in Steve a lot of what her parents were, which is very conventional marriage at the time. So I think having her drop out and go work at the paper is a good choice for her. And then Robin and Jonathan pushing forward with their studies, trying to make it in life. I mean, I like that scene between the four of them. It's nice to see them all together, all chatting after a long time away from each other. Talk about how they're going to make it a tradition to see each other every so often. I think it was a really nice scene. And one thing that I did hear that makes a lot of sense after watching this is that these final scenes were shot basically as the last scenes. Because sometimes in movies and TV shows, sometimes they'll shoot the final scenes first or just out of order based on location. But I did hear that these were the final scenes that were shot with these actors. I thought Robin's reaction was very telling of that, because that looked like a very real sadness of, this might be the last time that we're here. Same thing for the kids putting their D&D books away. There's a very real look of, this is it. This is the last time that we'll be doing this. And of course, we know in our day and age, there are so many things that, this is the last time we'll see Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Right. So there's a very good chance, like I said, they could do a sequel series. At that point, they could bring a lot of these actors back to reprise their roles. Heck, they even have a little party here with Holly and her friends that they could choose to follow if they wanted to do something else with this world. But with that being said, obviously this is the end of an era for these kids. They've been basically growing up throughout this entire show. So I think the reactions from all of them really spoke to that. And I think it added a lot of emotions to these scenes as well. But that final speech from Mike as well, I think it's very emotional, sort of showing what they're all going to be doing after they head their separate ways. And it shows that even though they are growing up, they're about to be adults, there's still that childish joy that they get to play games and have fun with their friends. And that's one of the reasons why I still enjoy video games, even though I'm in my early 30s now, is there's still that part of you that wants to enjoy life like a child would. Because obviously once you become an adult, you realize you have to push aside a lot of the childish stuff and you have to focus on more important things. But there are some times where it's nice to just sort of escape, whether it's into a game, whether it's into a book, whether it's into a movie or a show. Sometimes that inner child in you still wants to be able to just have fun and enjoy life. And I think that scene also really spoke to that feeling of, yes, they are about to graduate high school, they're about to go off to college, they're about to have to become adults, but they can still have fun They could still play games with each other. I thought that was a very nice scene to end on between the 5 of them there. I think that's about it for all my thoughts on it, though. Granted, this was a very long episode, so there might be some things I forgot about. So if there are any scenes or any plot points that you want my opinion on, just let me know in the comments. I can let you know what I thought of it. But those are kind of the biggest talking points that I wanted to get through as far as this final episode is concerned. But to wrap up and talk about not just this final season, but the series as a whole, the final season I thought was a good time. I still think season 4 is my favorite. And I do wonder, because I tried not to look, I tried not to see what people were talking about, but I did see a lot of the reaction was they were not having a good time with this final season. If I had to guess why, it's because it wasn't quite as good as season 4 for some people. And I think when you get it built up in your head that, well, season 4 was so good, season 5 is going to be even better. And then it's still good, it's just not quite as good as the prior season. I think that for some people might be disappointing. So that might be part of it. Also, I jumped from season 4 into season 5 only a few weeks after, whereas a lot of people obviously had to wait a few years. So that might have something to do with it too. All the anticipation and the hype building. And so you kind of build it up in your head about how good it's going to be. And if it doesn't quite meet your standards, it can be disappointing. I know a lot of people feel the same way about Kingdom Hearts 3, which I had a really good time with, but a lot of people hated it because they built it up of what it was going to be and it didn't match their expectations. So I think there is some truth to that. And it's why my view on it might be a little bit skewed compared to other people and what they were building this up to be. But I thought this was a good conclusion. I think building it up as a fight against Vecna, we do finally learn what the Upside Down is. We still don't know much about the Abyss, which the Upside Down is connected to. And even the Mind Flayer, we don't really get to learn what its whole deal was, just that it wanted to consume, and it used Henry to make that connection and to start infecting this other world. So there are still some questions, but as far as what the Upside Down is, as far as stopping Vecna, which has been built up since season 4, even stopping the Mind Flayer, technically it seems like they killed it too. So there are still questions there, but I think they accomplished the goals that they needed to. And at the end of the day, all these characters, we did get to see their stories come to a conclusion. We got to see them living their lives normally. We got to see them moving on from all this awful stuff that happened. They managed to find a way past it and hopefully live a normal life in the process. So for me, that's why I still think this is a good season. I would probably say, for me, season 4 is still top. I would say season 1 is probably second, and then I'd probably put season 5 just below season 1, season 2 below season 5, and then season 3 for me was just not as entertaining. So season 3 goes all the way down at the bottom. But as far as this series as a whole, I think it was a very fun series. They did a really good job building upon the story every season and sort of growing from where we started. The threat every season got a little bit bigger. First season was just the Demogorgon and Dr. Brenner and his little group. Second season, you got all these Demodogs running around. We get the hint of the Mind Flayer and what it's trying to do, as well as all of these growing vines. Season 3 is when the Mind Flayer enters the world and actually starts to grow its army a little bit here, as well as adds a little bit of the Russian storyline as well. Season 4 adds the military involved and Vecna now, as well as the Russians. And then this final season, it's been the military, Vecna, and the Mind Flayer. Probably all three at their most dangerous, with the military being in full control of Hawkins and Vecna and the Mind Flayer about to destroy both worlds. So I do think it was an appropriate progression from season 1 to season 5 as far as the intensity and how much danger the kids and everybody is in. Even the body count as well kept growing every season. I mean, season 1, I think there was only really Barb and then a few of the scientists at the end. This final season, I mean, so many people died. So it adds to that feeling of danger every season as well, because more and more people start dying because of everything going on. But I also do think these characters, they kept growing in the proper ways. For me, the best example, probably one of my favorite characters because of it, is Steve. Where he was in season 1, definitely not where he was in season 5. Much more likable by season 5. He's not the douchebag jock that he was in season 1. But everybody grew. Nancy grew. All the kids grew, physically and mentally. I think they all did such a good job of making these characters likable. Even some of the ones that weren't likable at first, we got to see them become more likable as the show went on. And adding that dynamic to it, for me, really helped the characters and the story grow as our little group grew. So all in all, had a really good time with the show. I think it was very well done. And I'm a little sad to see it go. Just like Mike and Hopper talked about, we have to move on. We have to keep moving. So we shall. I really hope you guys enjoyed all of these reviews for Stranger Things. But until next time, have a good day. Cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having discussions with people, so whatever your thoughts were, whether you agree or disagree with me, please leave them down below. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, if you did find yourself enjoying this review and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I also have a gaming channel as well as a channel where I talk about soccer, so if you want to give those a follow as well, that would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you want to help me improve upon the quality of these channels, I do have a Patreon. All of this is in the description below. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.